Day 31, Thursday, February 23rd. Anderson? Here. Baldwin? Here. Barlow? Beitman? Here. Boner? Here. Bouchard? Here. Brennan? Case? Present. Cooper? Here. Dockstetter? Here. Ellis? Present. French? Here. Murphy? Here. Guru? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? Here. Ide? Here. Jones? Here. Kinski? Here. Kolb? Present. Landon? Here. Larson? Here. McEwen? Here. Nethercott? Here. Pappas? Here. Rothfuss? Here. Salazar? Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Steinmetz? Here. Brennan? Excused, Mr. President. And Salazar? Excused. And President Driscoll?
Here.
Mr. President, 29 present, 2 excused.
Thank you. Prayer by Pastor Jake Merriman, Cheyenne Evangelical Free Church.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, you are the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. You do not faint or grow weary. Your understanding is unsearchable. You give power to the faint, and to the one who has no might, you increase strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted, but those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Father, I thank you that when you call us to a task, you also supply the strength that is needed to carry it out as we look to you. I again thank you for the men and women of the State Senate. Give them the strength to carry out the task before them. As they near the end of this session, help them to have the stamina and perseverance they need to keep going until the job at hand is done. It is a great and demanding task to which you have called each of them. The level of preparation, focus, attention to detail, engagement in conversations and deliberations is weighty. It requires much. Bless the work of their hands and provide for them in such a way that they will not grow weary in doing good. Protect and bless also their families and care for them in the toll it takes when so much is given. Thank you that you are sufficient for all this and more, infinitely more than all we could ask or imagine. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Senator Scott, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading, correction, approval of the journal.
Mr. President, your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 22, 2023 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Larson, Chairman.
Any objections? Being none, reports adopted. Doctor of the day is Barlow. Today in Wyoming history. 1969, this is an important one. Governor Hathaway signed into law a state severance tax bill. The bill had been extremely controversial, with there being strong arguments by the opposition that passing it would cause Wyoming's extractive industries to greatly reduce their activity. The arguments failed to stop the bill, and the severance tax did not greatly impact extractive industries. That's led to the birth of the PMTF. Pretty interesting. That's a major part of our history. Mine is like a parachute. Doesn't work if it doesn't open. Frank Zappa. That's a famous one. Friday's last day for bills to be reported out of committee in the second house. And most important, Friday is the last day for interim topics. So if you don't have them in by Friday, you're out. Poet laureate is not here, correct, right now, over at the house? Okay. So I have a proclamation to read. I didn't get him called to tell him we were doing it. Fellow senators, a good part of you know Lee Stein. He was who brought the X Prize to Wyoming, and is kind of a pioneer on a lot of things, and we're doing a deal to recognize him. This is a 67th legislature of the state of Wyoming recognized Lee Stein. Resolution of the undersigned members of the 67th legislature, state of Wyoming, whereas Lee is recognized as a successful venture philanthropist, serial entrepreneur, attorney, and investor, and where Mr. Stein and his wife Juniper co-founded Stein & Stein, Inc., an entertainment business management company in Los Angeles, California that represented music, film, high net worth climates. And whereas Mr. Stein serves President and Chief Operating Officer of Seaport Village, San Diego, and oversaw a $50 million expansion of the popular waterfront shopping and entertainment complex. Whereas Mr. Stein was a pioneer in electronic payment technologies, as founder of First Virtual Holdings, San Diego-based company, has developed patented technology by which consumers can securely purchase goods and services over the internet. Whereas Mr. Stein's founder and chairman of Prize Capital LLC, a venture capital firm which seeks to implement innovative financing techniques to facilitate critical breakthroughs in the fields of energy and environment, including carbon capture, utilization, sequestration technologies. Whereas Mr. Stein is listed as an inventor and co-inventor of 6 U.S. patents, including electronic payment systems, purchasing goods and services, making payments, facilitating and authenticating transactions, digital platforms to identify health conditions and therapeutic interventions using the automatic and distributed artificial intelligence system, and an investment model for formation of capital and value creation. Whereas Mr. Stein has contributed his time and talent to a variety of philanthropic causes, including serving on boards of the California Secure Transportation Energy Partnership, Natural Resources Defense Council, Environmental Entrepreneur Organization, and the Scripps Center for Integrative Medicine. Whereas Ms. Stein served on the Wyoming Economically Needed Diversity Options for Wyoming Endow Advisory Council 2017-19. Whereas Mr. Stein serves on the board as trustee of X Prize, a nonprofit organization that seeks to bring about radical breakthroughs for the benefit of humanity through incentivized competition, including the Carbon X Prize, hosted by the Wyoming Integrated Test Center. Now therefore be resolved by the undersigned members of the 67th Legislature of the state of Wyoming that we hereby honor the distinguished career and many accomplishments of Lee Stein, thank him for his service to the state of Wyoming, and recognize his contributions to the development of innovative technologies that are important to Wyoming's economy and future, and benefit the citizens of our great state, nation, and world. Signed on 22nd day. Lee's been a great friend to Wyoming. He's brought a number of businesses into the state, brought quite a lot of economic diversity, been kind of a key part of some of our blockchain stuff that came early on. He truly, unlike someone said that they were the founder of the internet, Lee really was on the bottom of the line when they started the internet. He played a key role. And owns a lot down here, and intends to move to Cheyenne at some point once things get better. So with that, we're on to even more excitement. This is signing of Enrolled Act. Oh, do we have what? Oh, well, it is more exciting now. So we have Wyoming's Poet Laureate here. My fellow senators joining us to share some of his work is Wyoming's Laureate, Eugene Galiango, who was first appointed by Governor Meade in 2016 and reappointed by Governor Gordon in 2019. Eugene is a retired elementary school teacher from Buffalo and an award-winning author. His writing celebrates life in Wyoming and the West. Please help me welcome Wyoming's Poet Laureate, Eugene Galiango. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. It's nice to be back. I have a new collection of poetry, about 64 poems, and I'm just going to read a few give you just a variety of what I write. The first one's titled, Little Person. Life, born from the womb, an infant totally helpless. He or she breathes, sleeps and eats, relieves themselves, cries for wants and needs. Nourished, he or she grows, makes faces, eyes focus, hands and arms coordinate, rolls over, sits up, teeth form. Babbling sounds become words, communication. Crawls turn into standing, walking, baby becomes a toddler. A little person emerges. Today's forecast. Today's outlook is for emotions to be clouded with frustration and possible outbursts of anger. Lows may dip down to sadness and disappointment, and highs range from happy to exuberant. The pressure will remain variable throughout the day, causing problems to blow in and exceed probable expectations. Tomorrow's outlook is for more of the same, with the addition of a few scattered surprises. As I told the other folks, I am an artist as well. I paint landscapes, and I'm always looking at the light, and I walk along the creek. Here's a poem. It's called Sun, Shade, and Shadow. Sun, shade, and shadow, artist tools to create depth in a painting. Sun fashions shade that cools and visually softens the landscape. Sun enhances cottonwood leaves to glisten as if laden with dew, sparkling in the canopy. Sun fabricates intricate patterns of shadowed branches and leaves on paths and roadways. Sun works with shade to darken edges along the stream, protection for trout. Sun fashions shade in the trees and grasses, and shade invokes mystery. Sun, shade, and shadow, a trio of creators working together with light. The mailbox. The widow cautiously shuffles out the front door toward the mailbox, hopeful there might be a card or letter from one of the children or grandchildren. Worried she might discover an unpaid or overdue bill. Excited there might be a colorful catalog or two to help pass the time. Anxious that the mailbox might be empty. The mailbox can make or break her day. Waiting, something we all do. We wait for common everyday things, the mail to arrive, the coffee to brew, wait for seeds to sprout, flowers to bloom, tomatoes and sweet corn to ripen. We wait for important things, getting the needed job, a loan approved. Wait for an illness to pass, medication to work, the doctor's call about the biopsy results. We wait for special things, summer vacation, a wedding day. Wait for baby's first tooth, words, steps. Holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries. We wait for needed rain during drought, teens to come home after dates. Wait for emails or packages to arrive, remodeling projects to be finished. We wait with patience or impatience, sometimes with trepidation or uncertainty. Wait with belief or unbelief, other times with excitement or joy. Whether ordinary or important, we continue to wait, but it's the delicate thread of hope that keeps us waiting. The river. The river is life, at times tranquil and placid, lulls you into a sense of peaceful trust, yet beware of hidden snags beneath the dark eddies shaded by trees that precariously cling to the water's edge. Spring runoff torrents scour and ravage the shore, eroding, and littering it with tree carcass log jams. Water swirls and slithers around rocks, boulders, bubbles silver white. Winding like liquid glass, it glides through the forest shades. Rock and stone spattered shoals, host willows and wildflowers. The banks sport frog otters and bear. Ducks, herons, and cranes navigate its curves. Sieves divide water as it slips and slides and passes underneath double rocks. It's a long, continuous bending ribbon of rhythm, gurgling and splashing, a musical melody of life racing, seeking, allowing nothing to stop its journey of song, obedient only to the laws of gravity. The river's a harmony of ripples, rivulets, rapids, and waves. Doctor says, I used to love to eat, never worried about what or how much food. Now my doctor says I need to limit my salt intake, not good for my blood pressure. My doctor says I need to watch my caloric intake. It will put on the pounds. He says I must control my protein, potassium, and phosphorus. Bad for my kidneys. Doctor says I should limit my red meat meals. Too much iron, not good for a man. Doc says, control your sweet tooth. Too much candy, cookies, cakes, and pies, and I might end up with diabetes. My doctor says, take in lots of fiber, nuts, grains, and leafy greens, but too much and I'll have the runs. The doctor says to avoid caffeinated tea and coffee. It will mess with my irregular heartbeat. The waiter asks, what can I get you, sir? I've decided I'm not very hungry. I'll just have a glass of water. Yeah, you can laugh. That's how it is. All right. This last one I thought everybody in this room will relate to. It's called keys. There are keys to my house, keys to my bike padlock, my safety deposit box, keys to my luggage, to my office door, keys to my safe and my car. But the most important key is the one to my heart, my wife, who helps me find all my misplaced keys. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Many thanks, Eugene. Really appreciate it. Always a treat to have you show. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, February 22, 2023. Message number 416. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to the following bills by the votes indicated. House Bill 67, Special License Plate Decals, Women Veterans, ayes 41, noes 20, excused 1. Message number 417, House Bill number 81, Hospital Supplemental Payments Statutory Fix, ayes 35, noes 26, excused 1. Message number 415. Mr. President, the House appointed House conferees to meet with the Like Committee number 1 for the Senate on amendments to Senate File 61. House conferees are Representative Harshman, Chairman, Representative Summers, and Representative Yin. Message number 418. Mr. President, the House receded from non-concurrence and concurred on Senate amendments to House Bill 118, Volunteer Firefighter Pension Funding, ayes 40, noes 21, excused 1. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Reports from standing committees.
February 22, 2023, Mr. President, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 200, Non-Resident Hunting Licenses Application Fees, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Ellis, Guru, Jones, and Schuler. No, Senator Baldwin. Senator Schuler, Chairman.
Thank you. Signing of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 53, originally House Bill 101.
House Enrolled Act Number 53, being Original House Bill 101, Uniform Trust Code Amendments, an act relating to trusts.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 53, originally House Bill 101. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act 54, originally House Bill 180.
House Enrolled Act Number 54, being Original House Bill 180, Brucellosis Testing Notification Requirements, an act relating to agriculture, livestock, and other animals.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 54, originally being House Bill 180. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act Number 55, originally House Bill 100.
House Enrolled Act Number 55, being Original House Bill 100, Acquisition Value Study, an act relating to property tax.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 55, originally being House Bill 100. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act Number 56, originally being House Bill 47.
House Enrolled Act Number 56, being Original House Bill 47, Election Equipment Federal Certification, an act relating to elections.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 56, originally being House Bill 47. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act Number 57, originally being House Bill 229.
House Enrolled Act Number 57, being Original House Bill 229, Electronic Payment of Sales and Use Taxes, an act relating to sales and use taxes.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 57, originally being House Bill 229. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act Number 58, originally being House Bill 284.
House Enrolled Act Number 58, being Original House Bill 284, Collection Agency Regulation, Debt Buyers, an act relating to collection agencies.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 58, originally being House Bill 284. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act Number 59, originally being House Bill 16.
House Enrolled Act Number 59, being Original House Bill 16, State Land Leasing Improvements, an act relating to state lands.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 59, originally being House Bill 16. I have so signed. Bills on second, oh, we got more enrolled acts? No, we got them. Bills on second reading. House Bill 2, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 2, Town Officers Salary Waiver.
House Bill 2 having been read two separate times. Question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. House Bill 17, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 17, engrossed, State Lands Grazing of Non-Owned Livestock.
House Bill 17 having been read two separate times. Question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. House Bill 89, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 89, engrossed, State Investment Returns Adequate Reserve Funding.
Mr.
Senator
President,
Kinski.
I'd ask this bill be laid back one day.
Without objection, so ordered. House Bill 99, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 99, engrossed, Property Tax Refund Program.
There is an amendment. Could we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 99, second reading, Amendment Number 1 to engrossed copy, page 2, line 6, delete.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 99 and ask for your favorable consideration. Good senators, what this amendment does is it strikes the language concerning an immediate family member and limits the ability to apply for the program to the homeowner who has resided in the home for at least 9 months of the previous year. And so that's the purpose of the amendment. I did ask extensively about any consequences of striking this language or even why it was added, because clearly it was intentionally added. And there was no rationale provided for the addition of the language or any concern about the removal of the language. So I think in good practice, in order to protect the integrity of the program, I urge your support of this amendment.
Further discussion? Seeing none, question being called. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 99. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. Second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 99 has passed the Senate. We're back on the bill. House Bill 99 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 128, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 128, voyeurism within enclosed spaces.
House Bill 128 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 140, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 140, mental health care access collaborative care model.
House Bill 140 have been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 185, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 185, engrossed, local government distributions revisions.
House Bill 185 have been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 199, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 199, engrossed, license plate decal breast cancer awareness.
House Bill 199 have been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Okay. House Bill 208, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 208, School Foundation Program Reserve Account Investments.
Okay, this is going to require a 2/3 vote on third reading. Senator Grew, this will require a 2/3 vote on third reading when it comes. Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like House Bill 208 to be laid back one day.
Without objection, it is so ordered. Thank you. Bills on third reading. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, do we have a consent list?
Mr. President, we do have a consent list, and that consent list consists of, I move third reading consent list and consists of the following bills. House Bill 38, Wyoming National Guard member referral. House Bill 59, Wyoming National Guard tuition benefits. House Bill 64, Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account obligations. House Bill 108, sale of THC vaping devices and edibles to minors prohibited. House Bill 144, senior citizen district programs and services.
Would anybody like any of these removed from the consent list? Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? House Bill 38, Wyoming National Guard member referral. House Bill 59, Wyoming National Guard tuition benefits. House Bill 64, Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account obligations. House Bill 108, sale of THC vaping devices and edibles to minors prohibited. House Bill 144, Senior Citizen District Programs and Services. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson. Baldwin. Barlow. Beitman. Boner. Bouchard. Brennan. Case. Cooper. Doggstetter. Ellis. French. Murphy. Guru. Hicks. Hutchings. Ide. Jones. Kinsky. Cole. Landon. Larson. McEwen. Nethercott. Pappas. Rothfuss? Salazar? Schuler? Scott? Steinmetz? President Driscoll?
Aye.
On the consent list, 31 aye. House Bill 38, are there any changes? Hutchings? Aye to no. Beitman? Aye to no. Bouchard? Aye to no. Ide? Aye to no. Larson? Aye to no. McEwen? Aye to no. Salazar? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 38, 24 aye, 7 no. House Bill 59, are there any changes? Hutchings? Aye to no. Bouchard? Aye to no. Ide? Aye to no. Beitman? Aye to no. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Salazar? No. French? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 59, 23 aye, 8 no. House Bill 64, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 64, 31 aye. House Bill 108, are there any changes? Rothfuss, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 108, 30 aye, 1 no. House Bill 144, are there any changes? Hicks?
Hicks, no.
Hicks, no.
Kinsky, no.
Kinsky, no. Ellis, aye to no. Cole, no. Nethercott, no. Landon, no. Cooper, no. Steinmetz, no.
Driscoll, no.
Driscoll, no. Pappas, no. Dockstetter, no. Jones, no. Closing vote. Garou, no. Case, no. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 144, 17 aye, 14 no.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected to the Senate, House Bill 38, Wyoming National Guard member referral, House Bill 59, Wyoming National Guard tuition benefits, House Bill 64, Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account obligations, House Bill 108, sale of THC vaping devices and edibles to minors prohibited, and House Bill 144, Senior Citizen District Programs and Services, have passed the Senate. Bills on third reading. House Bill 33, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 33, engrossed. School Finance Career Technical Education Grants, sponsored by the Education Committee, an act relating to school finance.
There is an amendment. Could we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3, line 23, delete.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 33 and ask for your favorable considerations. Members of the Senate, normally this is not something that I would do. This is the exact same amendment that we had in second reading. The only reason I brought this back is not all members were present on the floor. This is third reading in the final vote, and I thought it was probably appropriate to bring this back. So what this does is it goes into the scholarships for, or not the scholarships, but the potential awards for grants to school districts for CT&E. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the discussion. We had it yesterday. What the amendment does is says for those school districts that have fully expended their CTE award, they're eligible for these grants. The current bill says you have a priority, but it could go to a school district that did not expend all of their block grant allocation on CTE. And I come back and I say, we should award these grants to those school districts that are serious about CT&E, that are funding all of the CT&E that they're awarded out of the block grant for that purposes. So, Mr. Chairman, that's what the amendment does, but ask for your favorable consideration.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. For those that weren't privy to the conversation yesterday, the two concerns that I personally had with the amendment were, first of all, we discussed the concept in committee, and there was concern by the department that if they had to have strict requirements, it was going to be challenging for them to do the paperwork. I do understand that there's a prioritization currently in the legislation to provide a preference, but again, there was concern by the department of having a strict requirement would make it a more onerous application process for them. And the second concern was really, again, it shouldn't be about punishing or rewarding districts. This isn't about districts. This is about students in classrooms and whether we do or do not provide resources to them and give them equal opportunity. I think everybody in this particular chamber would really like to see all of our school districts use all of those CTE funds. I think that's generally a belief in this chamber. But if they don't, do we really punish their students by not giving them resources and not allowing them to buy new equipment because their school board made a decision we disagree with? It's sort of the wrong punished party. We are not affecting the school board members if we pass this amendment. We're affecting the students. And Mr. President, I would really like the students to have access, regardless of which district they're in, to this program if it's in their interest to purchase new equipment and to have access to resources in CTE. Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Scott, to you.
Mr. Acting President, I think this is an important issue here that we need to take quite seriously. We are starting to invade in a number of ways the local control, saying, look, you've got to comply with this, that, and the other component of the model. Some of that, Mr. Chairman, is really needed. Some of it, if we don't use a little care, we wind up as the school board for the whole state. And I don't think that's a good idea. And the question is it appropriate in this instance? I think in this instance, it is not. The intent of these grants is largely aimed at equipment. And the equipment purchases are in big lumps. The equipment can be quite expensive. And it's appropriate to deal with it on this kind of basis. And a lot of the equipment has been bought with Perkins grant money, and that is gradually drying up over time with the federal government. The issue here is, do we want to enforce compliance on the operating side, that they spend all their money that's the grant allocates for CTE on CTE, or do they have some flexibility in going elsewhere? And Mr. Chairman, I think in this instance, there's enough divorce between the purpose of these grants and the operating expenses on career and technical education that it's not appropriate to link the two together. But it is a debatable motion. You can come out either way. Mr. Chairman, it is sufficiently important. I'm going to ask for the yeas and nays.
Yeas and nays have been called. Thank you, Senator Scott. President Driscoll, to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Arguing in support of the amendment. Folks, CTE is an absolutely critical part of a lot of these schools. And the fact of the matter is this: we've got a whole bunch of them that won't spend the money on it. And now they're coming and asking for money on the outside of it. And, you know, I think it's entirely appropriate for the legislature to ask that money that is given within the block grant, we do the model, and we ask them to spend it. And we're getting a trend, and this is how you end up with us delving into local control issues, and we do. When we ask them to spend money in a certain way, and they blatantly go outside of it, and then come around and ask for grants that actually goes outside of the programs, it is exactly what we don't want to happen. You know, they ask nonstop. I was at a meeting downstairs yesterday. If we only had more money, we could do a better job. Well, when you starve a program, you're not going to do a better job. And that's exactly what this does. It says, okay, don't buy that equipment, but still have the program. You can't do it correctly, but let's starve the program. And I, for one, CTE is a critical area for me. Absolutely critical. I think it's a really important part if you're looking at putting kids back in the state of Wyoming. I think it's important that local school boards realize that the legislature thinks it is a priority and they should fund these programs. And if they don't fund them, then they're probably going to be there. And for the kids, it may mean in Wyoming, and particularly the areas that starve them, I think generally is bigger towns, they'll go to another school. They actually can move, and it will affect things. But I encourage you to pass this. I think it's really important to send a message. This is our priority. Please vote yes on the amendment.
Thank you, President Driscoll. Further discussion? Senator Landon, to you.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. I really wasn't going to weigh in on this. I have been very, very supportive of all of this career technical effort that we put in these last 3 or 4 years. I think it's very, very important. It was an important component at the next level where I worked all of those years. And frankly, it was one of the greatest challenges that we had at that college up in the middle part of the state. So I know what kind of challenges take place at the public school level, because these kind of programs that we're talking about are incredibly expensive. And we don't have critical numbers in Wyoming. That makes them even more expensive, Mr. President. It strikes me on this one, and I really didn't feel like I had a dog in the fight on this one. I think it's good that we're talking about CTE. This strikes me as taking away a little bit of incentive to start turning that boat back in the other direction. Maybe with the opportunity to go out there and get a critical piece of equipment, it would incentivize our local boards out there to turn that boat in a little different direction. The stuff is expensive. Extricating yourself out of a budget situation under which we have gone away from that model. Remember, our Joint Education Committee has worked the past several interims talking about why that model is a little off kilter. Well, part of the reason, Mr. President, is that in parts of the world, maybe perhaps even in your part of the world, it's darn difficult to attract teachers and to pay for these increases in inflationary costs. I don't know. I think if we really want to incentivize this and light a fire underneath this effort that we want to see out across there. I don't think this little bit of incentivized money is such a bad idea. Thank you, Mr. President.
The comments. Senator Hicks. Oh, Senator Ellis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment. This was an issue that we looked at extensively in the interim on the Joint Education Committee. I certainly support CTE students, but I think what gives me concern is when you start looking at the Crew report, you'll see things like the student activities budget. School districts on average statewide spend 125, 130% of their school block or their block grant on school activities. And so when you look at that, and I love school activities, I have kids playing sports, I have kids doing speech and debate, I support those, but the balance isn't there. We are starving things that are in our basket of goods, which is career and technical education, and displacing that money for student activities, which are optional. Not every student's participating in those. So one option we considered and discussed in the interim was, what if we took CTE out of the block grant and made that its own category? Districts could receive funding on a reimbursement basis. And that was not advanced. And so this is the bill, and the only idea that we had moved forward was additional money and grants. Until we get the balance right on looking at the data that we see in the Crew report, I think this amendment's appropriate. And one other thing I'd say, though, is during the interim, we heard concerns that, well, the information in the Crew report's not accurate. You can't trust it. Well, folks, the only way that we have accurate information, we rely on the districts to put those numbers in there and to give us that data. So unless and until we want to have an honest look about what's going on and understanding why that data isn't reliable, we're operating blind. We don't have the surgical tools to look at these budgets as we do in other areas of state government. So we do need some accountability. This advances that, and I think it's important for CTE students to not just get grant money, but to look at the entire structure of how they're being treated in budgets across our state. We shouldn't need something like this. If all of the districts were spending above 100% and still saying, yes, we need more money for CTE, I could probably get there much easier on this amendment, or without this bill, without the need for this amendment. But that's not where we are, Mr. President. So on and for the amendment.
Further discussion.
So I'd like to dispel a couple myths here that for somehow if we do this, it's punishing students. It's not. The money's going to go to students, Mr. President, but it's going to go to those students that are going to come out of a program that needs this expensive equipment, that are already involved in CTE, that these school districts have prioritized that it's important, because this is going to be your welders and your carpenters and your plumbers and your pipe fitters. So it's extremely important, but it's so limited in the amount of money that we're going to put out here. It only makes sense to put the money where it's going to do the most good. And that's districts that have a robust program that need this equipment that's very expensive, to train those people that are not going on to college and coming out, Mr. President, than it is to send to a district that has chosen to either fund education or spend part of the CTE budget on superintendent salaries or whatever they're diverting it for. Why would we let those kids step in front of those, or not kids, why would we let those school districts step in front of these school districts that are out there cranking these kids out, that vitally need this equipment to turn people out into our workforce right out of high school? Mr. President, this is a good amendment. It does what the intent is, and that's to get kids trained up on highly technical equipment, on programs that are up and running. It doesn't penalize anybody. This money is going to go to kids within the state of Wyoming.
Thank you. We're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 33. All in favor say aye. Oh, yeas and nays were called. I am sorry. That's my bad. Thank you very much.
Third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 33. Anderson? No. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed on the amendment. 25 aye, 6 no.
By your vote, third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 33 has passed the Senate. Back on the bill. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall House Bill 33, School Finance Career Technical Education Grants, pass the Senate? The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 33, third reading roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 33, 27 aye, 4 no.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected to the Senate, House Bill 33, School Finance Career Technical Education Grants, has passed the Senate. House Bill 103, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 103, Political Party Affiliation Declaration and Changes, sponsored by Representative Harrelson, an act relating to education.
There is an amendment. Can we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 103, third reading amendment number 1, delete.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 103 and ask for your aye vote. Ladies and gentlemen, last night after we got out, I was thinking about this amendment, the amendment that passed yesterday, and at first I thought it was pretty benign and didn't really do anything either way, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, let's look at the current statute talks about an elector. It doesn't talk about a qualified elector. This bill never had the intent of changing the current definition in statute of elector to qualified elector. And I searched our statutes, the term elector shows up 111 times in our statute. Shows up in our state constitution 9 times. The term qualified elector and elector seem to be used interchangeably. Qualified elector is defined in statute, elector is not. And talking with the office that oversees election, I asked them, I said, what's the difference? They looked into it. They said, well, we've reached out to a couple of county clerks. They said there's really no difference. It's used interchangeably. So either the amendment we passed yesterday does nothing or it does something we may not want it to do, because our current law, as we've been running our elections under the current definition of an elector, not a qualified elector. So what we just did yesterday, we changed that to qualified. So we don't even know what we just did. So my amendment just strips out that amendment, goes back to the original bill as presented to us on first reading, and takes care of that. I think think it's the right thing to do. I think we don't know exactly what we did yesterday, and I think it's important to stick to the current statute as written. If we wanted to change every instance of elector to qualified elector in our statute books, let's bring that bill next session and let's fix it, if that's truly the intent of the amendment yesterday. But just to change it in two specific sections, I don't think is right, and I think we should probably undo that and stand for any questions.
Further debate? Further debate? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not quite sure how to react to that. I think yesterday, the attempt was simply made to correct what is going to be a problem if we pass the bill as it is. We will have statutes in two different places which conflict with each other. And I would read again what our legal staff has provided to me. The Wyoming Supreme Court has interpreted an elector to mean anybody who is eligible to vote, regardless of whether the person is registered or not. So that's everybody. Inserting qualified, which is what we did yesterday, in front of elector, which is defined in the election code to mean someone who is registered to vote. In other words, we're all qualified electors in here. We're all registered. That would make sure that the person could still register to vote at a primary election on the day of the election, or from May 1st all the way to primary election day. An elector could come in and register. I didn't think that the intent of this bill was to close out 3 months worth of opportunity to do that if somebody's not a qualified elector. If you're not registered and you go in to register after May 1st, the clerk's going to have to say you can't register. All that amendment did yesterday was clean that up and say, if you're already registered, you're locked in on May 1st. If you're a 17-year-old and you come in June and you want to register, we're still going to let you. My concern is from May 1st to primary election day, if we strip this amendment out of here, anyone who's 17 during those 3 months and tries to go in and register to vote because they turned 18 isn't going to be able to register. I think we need to keep the amendment in the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Using one interpretation of the court and applying it to one section isn't the right thing to do. That interpretation applies to the code in entirety. If this stays in this bill, we have to put a definition of what that means, and that's not there. So on and for the amendment, it's the right thing to do, to go back, put it back where it was. If it appears to be a problem, we're going to have to fix it next year. But I'm telling you that, like I said, that interpretation that we just heard broadly covers the entire election code. So we're changing it just in one place to qualified. That's already a given across the board in our code. I would urge the body to adopt this amendment.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I think we've got a problem here. There's one interpretation of things that says that if we pass this amendment, then we will be prohibiting people who come of voting age in this May 1 to the primary period from being able to register at the polls to vote in the primary. I don't think that's what any of us want to do. On the other hand, it's not clear, the amendment we passed yesterday was dependent on an interpretation by the legal staff of what some court decisions have held and what their implications are from this bill. Mr. President, I think, frankly, what we need to do is have an amendment that says bluntly that these people will be allowed to register, so that we don't inadvertently really change the ability of young people who come of age during this period from voting. I think we probably would all support that, Mr. President. Mr. President, I think the best solution here is, whether or not this amendment passes, is going to be to lay this bill back for a day, and I don't know whether you want the request now or after we vote on the amendment.
Let's take the vote. Let's vote. Amendments in. Further comments on amendments? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the amendment, and I certainly support the senator from Bates Creek, because what I actually see happening here is mistrust and fear from a particular direction regarding an amendment that's misunderstood. And so we're just going to resist it because we don't trust it. So what we heard is legal staff went and rushed to go see what it did. The amendment came in late in the day. Why? Because a request from a constituent came in to a number of us in the room with this exact scenario. So somebody across the state emailed about 6 of us and said, what about if I have a 17-year-old, as the good senator pointed out, from Natrona County, it looks like they would be barred. No intention of trying to hurt the bill or hurt this effort, but there was this concern of perhaps that could happen, that a 17-year-old in the month of May would be boxed out from being a qualified elector to vote in our elections. And so the good senator from Natrona County, responding to a legitimate constituent concern, went to our LSO staff, who provided us an opinion of which we rely on all of the time. Unfortunately, the office's attorneys probably didn't feel as comfortable about it, didn't have time, reached out to the clerks for the actual expertise. The clerks support the amendment as put forward by the attorney, or by the senator from Natrona County. There's no harm in it. Could an amendment be clarified? Certainly. But voting for this amendment now, I do believe, leads to the result of a 17-year-old being prohibited from participating in our elections, and that's the greater evil, right? That's the greater harm that we're trying to avoid. So I am on and against the amendment, because the amendment we passed yesterday, the second reading amendment, actually, I do believe, and I support the opinion of our LSO staff and attorneys who had plenty of time to review it, achieves the result that the senator from Natrona County has indicated is the purpose of the amendment and what it does. So I don't think there's any mischief occurring here. I know there's a lot of mistrust. On and against the amendment, I think the second reading amendment is sufficient. If you want to lay it back to review those Supreme Court cases, we certainly can. But on and against the amendment.
Further discussion. Senator Kinski.
Thank you. I'm not motivated by mistrust or fear. I reluctantly voted for this the other day, and on reflection, I do think it needs to be deleted. I think this distinction between elector and qualified elector is actually causing more confusion in the code, not less. That's one. 2, clerks support, that's plural. I don't know how many clerks. I have 2. I've not heard that they support that amendment. I've not heard that. And finally, the ultimate arbiter of it, the Secretary of State's office, and they said the statute's fine. So I think on and for this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mayor Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to the bringer of the First Amendment. If I have the issue right, we have a person that reaches 17 just right in that little time frame where they're allowed to register. And if that's the case, I look at those young children that I think they have to be 5 or 6 before they reach or before they're allowed into kindergarten. So they have to wait a whole year to go to school. So I just want to make sure that's what he's talking about, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly support the idea that came out of Bates Creek. I think we probably should, take some time, let us back, whether you vote for or against this amendment that we have before us. The question I have, and I agree with the objective of my colleague from Natrona County, we shouldn't, box folks out who are turning 18 during that window. My question is, who else would this apply to beyond just, folks who are turning 18? It would obviously apply to everybody, the way I read it, including folks who may be adults who are not registered or unregistered at some point. Maybe they didn't vote in the last election. And so I certainly agree with the intent behind the second reading amendment, but I think we do need, whether you vote for this amendment or vote against it, we certainly need to lay it back and make sure that we hit the target precisely without any collateral damage.
Other debate. Senator Case.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think the prudent thing to do would be to leave the amendment, the second reading amendment in. And the reason is, if there's uncertainty about what the impact of this, then that'll be resolved in the conference process. The alternative to lay it back is a good one too, but to defeat the second reading amendment and then remove it from the bill leaves the potential open that we will be disenfranchising people that have a right to vote. That's a very serious thing for a republic to do.
Further discussion. Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I voted a straight Republican ticket for longer than a lot of you have been alive, for more years than a lot of you have been in Wyoming. My grandson will turn 18 in early August. If there's any chance that we're going to exclude him or his class of his age of people from voting, from having the same privilege that I have, then this amendment is dead wrong. Dead wrong. We need to stay where we're at. Thank you, sir.
Further discussion. Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're trying to deal with a bill here to take care of an issue. I think there's a lot of things happening, and I did call up air traffic control to make sure I could stand up in the mix of these black helicopters flying around me. Because the issue is pretty clear. Let's move this bill through. Let's bring it back to the way it was. We'll make advancements on this. Nobody's trying to disenfranchise anybody. The words are interchangeable as the way I was reading the definitions. I think what we risk is this thing, in the further process down the line, when there are differences, that it will not make it through. It will not become a bill in front of the governor to choose, or the senior executive down the hall to make a choice. Let's keep this bill as it is. I think stripping this back does no harm. I am not going to, get overcome by the emotional argument that someone's trying to take away anyone's rights. Certainly, that's not the intent of any of this. I stand on and for the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mayor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Article 6, Section 12 of our Constitution talks about no person qualified, and then it goes on to say, unless is allowed to vote, unless they shall be registered according to law. Registered according to law. And there's actually an exception, unless failure to register is caused by sickness or absence. So maybe we are looking at the law, and maybe we're talking about court cases, but I think that maybe we all ought to go back to the founding document and take a look at that and see if we understand what that says. Thank you, Mr. President. On and again.
Doc Stater.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's not mistrust, it's confusion from the previous amendment yesterday. If we have confusion, let's back it back out. Let's take it back out, give us a shot at the original bill, unamended, on and for the amendment.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we go to the sponsor of the amendment and frankly, vote it up, vote it down. My attempt yesterday was to bring an amendment which would, I thought, clear up some of the confusion that was created by the bill. In asking our legal staff to correct the problem, that's how they did it. And The language is written in our statutory style, and it corrects the problem. These 3 months, we have a period of time that we've talked about these 17-year-olds who are going to turn 18, but we're also going to have other folks who have moved into our state and have not registered. And so we're also going to be telling them that, no, I'm sorry, you can't register to vote. All that amendment did yesterday was to clear this up. I didn't think the intent of the bill was to block everybody out during that 3-month period of time. But if that's what you want, then certainly you want to vote for the amendment. I'm not going to vote for the amendment because I think we fixed the bill yesterday. Thank you.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Your
Good
second
discussion.
time.
Yeah, second time. Good discussion. I would just point your attention to, what is this? 21.1.102 definitions in the election code and poll list, where the term electors shows up multiple times, not qualified, but electors. Poll list is a list of registered voters as compiled by the clerk for use by election judge at the polls. The poll list shall, and then you look through here, provide for the notation of 1, a sequential number for each elector voting at the polls. 2, electors who cast provisional ballots. 3, electors who cast absentee ballots if the absentee ballots are processed and counted at the polls. 4, electors who change political party affiliation. Electors, not qualified electors. What we did was we gummed up the bill to the point where we don't know what we just did. That's why my amendment's here to pull that out. The original bill, when we went into Title 22, 5-212 and 214, we did not touch the term elector. It's not red, it's not blue, it's not stricken. This amendment goes in and goes into the current code and changes with that definition of elector that we've been using forever. We don't know what we just did yesterday. This amendment takes that out, goes back to what we do currently. I think that's the right thing to do. On and for the amendment.
Voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 103, yeas and nays have been asked for. Roll call.
Third reading amendment number 1, House Bill 103, roll call. Anderson? No. Baldwin? No. Barlow? No. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Case? No. Cooper? No. Dockstader? Aye. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Murphy? No. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? No. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Aye. President Driscoll?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Third reading amendment number 1, 16 aye, 15 no.
By your vote, third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 103 has passed the Senate. We are back on the bill. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I don't think we really know what we've done on the issue that we've just debated. I asked the bill be laid back for 1 day with the intent of bringing back amendment that's pretty blunt as to what we're doing.
Senator Kinski.
Point of order, once we've done the reading, read the bill in, had an amendment, voted on it, are we able to lay the bill back?
Absolutely. Yep,
All right.
no problem at all. Without objection, so ordered. House Bill 123, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 123, collection of antler or horns by residents and non-residents, sponsored by Representative Berger, an act relating to game and fish.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I would request that House Bill 123 be laid back for 1 day.
Without objection is so ordered. House Bill 276, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 276 engrossed, Shed Antlers and Horns Conservation Stamp, sponsored by Representative Wiley, an act relating to game and fish.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I would request that House Bill 276, Shed Antlers and Horns Conservation Stamp, be laid back for one day.
Without objection, so ordered. I'm glad we don't have any more to lay back. It's the end of third reading. Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business. Consideration of bills on general file, or whatever you want.
Mr. President, I'm just wondering if there's any establishments uptown that may be able to host 31 folks for at least a one cocktail lunch. But, Mr. Chairman, absent that, Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2 p.m.
You've heard the motion. Are there any announcements? Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your number 5 committee, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, will meet today, Thursday, February 23rd, upon adjournment in Capitol Room Extension 2 and online to consider the following bills. House Bill 222, Colorado River Advisory Committee, House Bill 76, Licensing Board Amendments, and House Bill 17, State Land Leases.
Senator Kinski.
Mr. Chairman, at 12:15, your Senate Appropriations Committee will meet in E301 to consider the re-referral of House Bill 4, Medicaid 12 months postpartum coverage, re-referral for appropriation, HB 11, State Park Rangers retirement, re-referral for appropriation. We will also look at interim topics, and we will also look at proposed calendar for the interim as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further announcements? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we were trying to have a joint conference committee on Senate File 61. Unfortunately, our colleagues on the House side cannot meet today at noon, so we'll try to do something upon adjournment today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. It's pretty weak. You might have to stay. Senate will stand recessed until 2 p.m.